America is stronger. Our adversaries and competitors are weaker. During my presidency, I've increased America's power at every dimension. Neither has occurred with the United States of America, for God's sake. There is nothing beyond our capacity.
With 1 week to go until Donald Trump is officially the president of the United States, today Joe Biden gave his final address to the nation. And it was full of a bunch of pat on the backs to himself, to the Democrat Party, and he claims the United States is more prosperous, it's stronger, the world is safer than ever before. This speech is filled with so many lies and so full of delusion, it's honestly hard to keep track of everything. It's a perfect example of why the Democrat Party lost, because despite the fact that every American is saying things are worse and their life is harder, Joe Biden brags about the great job that they did. Now, just to give you a quick taste of how delusional this is about to be, here is Joe Biden talking about how when he came into office, the border crossing numbers actually went down. Watch.
Look, let's get something in mind about the border. When I became president, the numbers came way down, number one. Number two, we had a circumstance where I pushed very hard for a bipartisan agreement to put more people on the border, more Secret Service agents. And guess what? He's on the phone saying, don't do it, make me look bad.
So just to be clear, over Biden's entire term, no piece of border legislation passed. The only two things that happened was day one, he came into office and signed a whole bunch of executive orders opening up the border. And then like 3 months ago, signed some executive orders closing down the border, proving that the entire border crisis was exclusively the fault of Joe Biden. And it's not just that he opened up the border, it's the gaslighting that followed the entire border crisis. They swore up and down for the first 3 years of the Biden administration that the border wasn't even a problem. We were just racist for not wanting the border to be open. It was just a whole bunch of women and children and families escaping tyranny and death, looking for a better life. There was no chance that there were any bad actors coming through our open border. They said it was a net positive for society. These illegals weren't a drain on society. They don't receive any government welfare. When the latest reporting shows that in this past year, $150 billion was spent on illegal immigrants, both federal and state dollars, across the country. Now listen to Joe Biden talk about how great of a job he's done, how prosperous America is, how good our economy is, how strong we are internationally, and essentially breaking his shoulder, reaching around and giving himself the biggest pat on the back I've ever seen. Watch.
Compared to 4 years ago, America is stronger. Our alliances are stronger. Our adversaries and competitors are weaker. We have not gone to war to make these things happen. During my presidency, I've increased America's power at every dimension, and we've increased the economic power, building the most dynamic economy in the world from the bottom up and the middle out, not the top down. In short, Kamala and I took office, our nation had become stronger at home, are stronger in the world, and now America is more capable and I would argue better prepared than we've been in a long, long time.
I mean, just talk about gaslighting. If Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were so successful, why did they lose the election? If everything they did was so beneficial for Americans, why did they vote for the guy that they claim is the threat to democracy, the 34-time felon, the best friend with Putin? Why did Americans vote for a complete 180 from the course that we're on if everything that the Biden administration was doing was so damn good? I don't even know what he meant when he said he built an economy from the bottom up and the middle out. All he did was literally create a high inflation environment that hurt people at the bottom to the middle. Anybody who was at the top got substantially richer under Biden's high inflation economy because they all own inflationary resistant assets like stocks and real estate. The left claims that they're the party who hates the ultra rich, but they don't even understand that the party they support made the richest people even richer. Look at the wealth gains under Trump of the top 1% versus Biden. If you want to talk about a president for the ultra rich, it's Joe Biden. Now, the next thing he says literally left me in shock. as he tries to brag about seizing more fentanyl at the border than Donald Trump ever did. Watch.
We found ways to work with each other, to address climate change, to reduce the flow of fentanyl in the United States, which, by the way, overdose deaths are coming down across our nation. And in my administration, we've seized more fentanyl at our border in 2 years than the previous 5 years combined.
Well, you want to know why you seized so much more fentanyl? Because so many more people were coming across the border, obviously. It's so disingenuous to brag about something that is the direct result of your incompetence. That'd be like if I went through a neighborhood and took a wrecking ball and knocked down every single house in the neighborhood and then bragged about how we built more houses under my leadership than the last guy who didn't take a wrecking ball to any of the houses. They tried to do this on MSNBC with Trump's border czar, where they bragged about there were more deportations under Joe Biden than there were under the Trump administration. And Tom Homan says the exact same thing. He says, yeah, because way more people were coming across the border. So of course the deportations are going to be higher. That is the delusional and deceptive mindset of Democrats. Now, if you think that it can't get any worse, you'd be wrong. Listen as Biden brags about the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, while also saying that Russia and Iran are weaker than they were when he took office. Watch.
Today, I can also report to the American people, we're the first president in decades who's not leaving a war in Afghanistan to his successor. But we've got bin Laden during the Obama-Biden administration, the primary objective of war had been accomplished. And I believe that going forward, the primary threat of al-Qaeda would no longer be emanating from Afghanistan, but from elsewhere. And so, we not need to station a sizable number of American forces in Afghanistan. So when I took office, I had a choice. Ultimately, I saw no reason to keep thousands of servicemen in Afghanistan. In my view, it was time to end the war and bring our troops home, and we did. Remember? Critics said if we ended the war, it would damage our alliances and create threats to our homeland from foreign-directed terrorism out of a safe haven in Afghanistan. Neither has occurred. Neither has occurred.
Talk to the families of the 13 dead service members. I bet they wouldn't consider it a success. Talk to the thousands of Afghani allies that worked with our military that were left hung and dry, who probably got tortured and killed once the Taliban took back over. I bet they wouldn't consider it a success. Talk to the million of women in Afghanistan who are now back to living under suppressive Sharia law. I bet they wouldn't find it to be a success. The only people who could consider that a success are the Taliban, who were left $75 billion of brand new US military equipment. And I just don't understand what world Joe Biden is living in, where he claims that Russia and Iran are weaker today than when he took office. Before he took office, Iran was broke and had no money to fund terrorism. Russia was kept in check and wasn't invading into Ukraine. It was Joe Biden's incompetence and weakness as a leader that led to these wars. His incompetence was unfreezing like $60 billion of money from Iran and allowing them to sell their oil again, which gave them so much money they could now start funding these terror attacks. And because the United States was out of Afghanistan, we had no real base of operation to combat that. And his weakness in the way that he withdrew from Afghanistan in such a terrible manner showed Russia that we didn't have a strong commander-in-chief in charge. And so they thought that they could just invade Ukraine and nothing would happen because of it. Now, if you wonder why he keeps saying, we have more friends, our alliances are stronger, we have more buddies internationally, you're probably wondering what he means. Well, here he describes our relationships and investments in African countries, and this will explain it perfectly. You would think all the things he's proud of doing there are things that he should be doing in America, while citizens are screaming at him that their life is hard. But nope, we just do these things for everybody else, and that's why everybody loves us. Watch.
Our administration has launched a transformative initiative to build high-impact infrastructure in developing nations. It's called PGI. You all know that better than anyone. This is our alternative to what China offers with its massive projects across Africa and beyond. We've leveraged $600 billion and unleashed the private sector to build an infrastructure in order to grow economies and combat climate change. As an example, I was recently in Angola to see a major project being built with the help of American public funding, which brought in even more private investment. We're building the first ever transcontinental railroad across Africa. It will significantly improve the economies of the region. Will help farmers transport crops in new global markets. Will transport critical minerals that are needed for electric vehicles.
I'm so glad that this old fart is just 1 week away from being out of the office and we can finally restore some pride and competence to our government. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. Are we ready for Trump to take back over and get things on track? If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Turn on those notification bells so you never miss a video. And I will see you guys in the next one.